How do you feel about talking about your sexuality on camera?
It's fine. I don't feel any particular way about talking about my sexuality in front of a camera. I'm just nervous to be on this side of a camera in general. I remember when I was maybe 6, I had one of those like wiggle writers. They're like a little tiny pen, thick, look just like a little dildo, and they vibrate. And the idea was like, you write and it's like wiggly, whoa, crazy, cool, so fun for kids. And I remember it was just like really nice when I put it between my legs. And somehow I knew you weren't supposed to tell anyone about it. And that was the first moment that I really remember feeling like there was a way that I could get pleasure from my own body. It was clearly like a sexual thing, but at that age I didn't have that kind of language. It was just like, oh, this is, whoop, hello. My mom gave me the talk, and we went into our little tiny bathroom in a little house we had. She said, like, I want you to know how babies are made or something. I remember her telling me, your vagina has this little hole, and boys make sperm, and if you get sperm anywhere around any part of your vagina, you're gonna get pregnant for sure. And at the time I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's scary. And looking back on it, I'm just like, what was she even thinking? Like, what was she was? I'm sure she was just trying to keep me safe and trying to keep me from being pregnant. But like, you don't have to like tell your kids factually incorrect things in order to keep them from having sex. I think not having any kind of concrete, true to reality, like useful information about sex and sexuality when I was a kid meant that when I did become sexually active, it was like way too early because I didn't understand really what it was or like why you should wait. The first time that I had sex, um, not lost your virginity because virginity is bullshit. I was barely 15. And he was 26. And there was a long time where I didn't realize that, like, my first sexual experiences were essentially rape. And it feels weird to, like, say that I'm a rape victim. It was really, like, just a couple years ago when Me Too was a thing. And I was like, oh shit, me too. Like, I had never really processed it. I had just been like, oh yeah, I was sexually active too young. And I didn't really know what I was doing and it was silly. But having the perspective of like, oh, he was way older than me and I was way too young to be making these decisions for myself. And like, I didn't even know what I liked. I didn't have the agency in my own body or in my own sexuality to say like, oh, I don't like it when you just fold me in half and jackhammer for 5 minutes and then be like, wasn't that great? Like, no, that's not great. Like, that was painful for me. I'm not having fun. The only like part of it that was fun for me was making the decision to be like, yes, I want to do this and nobody can tell me that I'm not going to, you know? Just being like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing with my body.
Do you have a sexual orientation?
What a good question. For a long time, I identified as pansexual. Um, and then I heard of a term, and I wish I could remember it, but I heard of a term for someone who is most attracted to people who are somewhere in the middle of the gender spectrum. And that's me, for sure. The reason that that middle gender spectrum is the most interesting to me is because it is some kind of signifier of creativity and inventiveness and willingness to play as far as being sexual. That is what really gets me going.
What myths or beliefs about sex have you dispelled?
Ooh, I really thought that being a pleaser was the ultimate thing you could be. It's been like a real big flip for me to kind of turn that on its head and realize that it's most important for me to know what I want, and to be able to ask for what I want, to identify that and then ask for it. And that being a pleaser is just, it's sort of like a cop out. It's a way of being like, yeah, I'm into sex, but I don't know how or why. And then I think also that it's like no big deal to not get what you want from sex. You know, like I never orgasmed with a partner until last year. Started having sex at 15 all the way to 30. I spent 15 years never having an orgasm with a partner. It took getting together with Sarah and having her be like, no, this is the way that my body likes to be touched, you know? And then being like, oh, I can do that too. I can have that kind of relationship with my body and, you know, not be a pleaser and be an asker. Having the first orgasms with a partner, I was like, this is incredible. I want to do this all the time. No shade on people that haven't gotten there yet because it's a journey and it's like an emotional journey. You have to get over the idea that you're like not worthy or that your partner is more important or that like your sexuality isn't something that you should really spend time on. Getting over that and realizing like, oh, spending time actually with my body, with toys, whatever, on my own, like taking out time to masturbate and figure out how do I like my body to be interacted with was so important. You know, it actually does matter to me. It was just like I didn't have a partner that I thought was willing or I didn't want to spend the time or whatever.
What does safe sex mean to you?
Safe sex is mostly about communication, being willing to ask partners to get tested. You know, like if you're talking to somebody online and it's getting good and you're like, okay, this is going to happen soon, you're like, hey, so what's your testing status? You know, and not making it a loaded question, but just being like, I just want to know so that I know what precautions I need to take for the way that I want to have sex. My experience is that if you do that, your partner will also reciprocate, you know, because I think a lot of people have never been talked to that way about safety.
What initially attracts you to someone?
There's a, I'm going to show my inner soft nerd core here. There's a line from The West Wing, and the chief of staff is talking about like what he's looking for in a White House staffer, and he says, more than anything, I'm looking for a mind at work. And I immediately grabbed onto that phrase, like that's what it is for me. I want to know that you're curious. You know, I want to know that you have things that you're passionate about that don't make you any money, that you just do because you like them, you know, because they feed you somehow. I want to know that you're like constantly looking for new people and new places and new things that you like, and you're reading and you're doing something with your brain. You know, you have ideas. That's what initially attracts me to someone, is that kind of curiosity and a mind at work, for sure. I like artistry in sex. I like people that are in their bodies and have taken the time to get in their bodies and are willing to break all the rules on how to put them together. I like a really good focused vibrator. I like a lot of vibration. I like a sex company that is ethical and woman owned and ideally queer owned and, you know, is going to give me something that is going to be actually good for my body and is going to really fucking vibrate. I like a talker. I'm into a talker. I like someone who knows what they want, what makes their body happy, and is willing to meet me where I'm at with my body. I like a little bit of poetry, you know, and like very specific language. And I love a continual feedback stream. Talk to me. If I'm doing a thing and you're like, yeah, that's not really doing anything for me, like tell me, just say that. I think there's a lot of ego in sex, and people are worried about hurting their partner's feelings or having their feelings hurt, you know, and pulling the ego out and just being like, we are two bodies trying to make each other feel good, and we have completely different experiences and completely different nervous systems and completely different ways of talking about and being in our bodies. Like, tell me, make your tongue soft and wide, you know, instead of just like softer, but really tell me, like, what, if I was doing this to myself, what would I be doing? How would I be using my body to interact with myself? All of that stuff, all of those like really specific directions are so hot to me, and they're so wonderful. Taking that and trying to adopt that into like the way that I have sex with a partner as well, has for sure yielded the best sex that I've ever had with cis men. And, you know, across the spectrum has helped me have better sex in general. The purpose of sex is to make your body feel good. It's to connect with another human being. I have a hard time having the kind of sex where I'm having fun, but I also don't care about the other person. Like, that is a hard place for me to get to. In general, I need an emotional connection, and I want to feel like we're both really present there with each other. We're having an interaction that neither of us would have on our own. That's important for me.
If you could have the talk with yourself,
Yeah, sure.
how would it go?
I have this like penchant for doing these research deep dives on things that I'm interested in. And I would say, like, you can do the same kind of deep dive and like read about your body and spend time with your body, and figure all that out before you involve a partner. Sex is a complicated interaction, and you want to be doing it with someone that is there for that complicated interaction, you know, because it's good. Because it can be really good when it's nuanced and creative and considered. It doesn't have to just be like banging your bits together, you know? It can be like creative and interesting. Talking about women's pleasure is important because society demands so much of our bodies, and we should enjoy them. You know? Period. Like, full stop. We should be able to talk about sex in a way that centers women's pleasure. We should encourage women to ask for what they want. We should all be having better sex, you know, and like none of us are trading that kind of insider information. The more open and honest that we can be with each other just in general, like destigmatize talking about sex in detail, in graphic detail. Destigmatize talking about your own body and how it functions and what it does. It can only be better for everyone, you know, like we can all be having better sex. And as women, we can be walking through the world actually having a good time in our bodies and not just being like, man, if only I had abs, then everything would be great. Or if only, like, you know, I didn't have those 2 weird nipple hairs, man, those are just killing my vibe. Things to fix and ways to like squeeze your body into a little box that just fits easy on a shelf, on somebody else's shelf. Why are we doing that, you know? It's so much better if we can really talk about this and get it all out in the open and have these honest conversations with each other, and then maybe exist as whole, complete humans in society. It's my body and I'll do what I want to. I'll do